Okay, so you're thinking about diving into the world of coding,
That's awesome.
but how do you pick that first programming language?
Right.
It can feel like there are a million options out there.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating.
But don't worry, that's why you sent us this great article from Algo Academy.
This is going to be good.
And we're going to take a deep dive into it together in this episode
That sounds good.
to help you find that perfect first language.
I like that. The perfect first language.
So Algo Academy really stresses that your first language can shape how you think about code in general.
It's true.
It's like the foundation of a house, right?
Exactly. You want to make sure it's solid.
And you can build anything you want on top of it.
That's a great analogy.
So let's talk about how to build that foundation.
Okay.
Algo Academy gives us a bunch of factors to consider,
There are a lot of factors, yeah.
like your goals, the job market, and how easy the language is to learn.
It can seem overwhelming, but Algo Academy breaks it down really well.
And remember, the most important thing is what you want to do with code.
Exactly. What are you passionate about? What do you want to create?
So let's start with those goals.
Okay.
Have you thought about what kind of projects you want to tackle?
Yeah. Give me some examples.
Maybe you're dreaming of building websites, creating mobile apps, or diving into the world of data science.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, each of those has its own set of popular languages.
For sure.
Now, we also need to think about the practical side of things, like the job market.
Right.
Algo Academy highlights how the demand for certain languages can vary.
Yeah, it can depend on where you live or what industry you're interested in.
But here's the good news.
What's that?
Algo Academy says some of the most in-demand languages are also super beginner-friendly.
That's great to hear.
We're talking easy-to-read code that won't make your head spin.
Makes sense.
And another thing that's super important, especially when you're just starting out, is having a supportive community.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Algo Academy really emphasizes finding a language with tons of tutorials, online forums, and helpful folks who can answer your questions.
That's so important, especially when you get stuck.
Totally. It's like having a whole team of coding buddies cheering you on.
I like that.
Now, some languages are like the Swiss Army knives of the coding world.
How so?
You can use them for a ton of different things.
Versatile.
Exactly. You can explore web development, data science, even game development, all with the same language.
That's pretty cool.
And while we're thinking about the future, Algo Academy also suggests choosing a language with staying power.
Yeah, technology changes fast.
So it's smart to pick a language that's likely to be relevant for years to come.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've talked about goals, the job market, learning curve, community, and even the future of these languages.
We've covered a lot.
Now let's dive into some of the popular choices.
Awesome. I'm ready.
Algo Academy gives us a great overview, and we'll go through each one, breaking down the pros and cons, and even looking at some real code examples.
Looking at code sounds good.
And don't worry if you've never seen code before.
It can look like a foreign language.
We'll keep it simple. It's more about getting a feel for what each language sounds like and how easy it is to understand.
I like that.
We'll even connect those snippets to real-world applications.
Cool. So people can see what's possible.
Exactly.
Okay, let's do it.
First up is Python.
Oh, classic.
Algo Academy calls it the versatile choice.
Yeah, and for good reason.
It's known for being super readable.
Yeah, which is great for beginners.
It's almost like reading plain English.
Almost.
And it's used in so many different areas.
Give me some examples.
Web development, data science, artificial intelligence, even creating those chatbots everyone's talking about.
Chatbots, those are hot right now.
Plus, Python has a huge community.
Huge.
Seriously, there are tons of resources and tutorials online, and you can always find someone to help you if you get stuck.
Very supportive community.
Now, Algo Academy does mention that Python can be a bit slower than some other languages.
That's true.
But honestly, for most projects, especially when you're starting out,
Yeah.
that speed difference won't be a deal breaker.
Agreed.
Okay, ready for a sneak peek at some actual Python code?
Let's do it.
All right, here's an example from the Algo Academy article.
Okay.
It says, hashtag a simple Python program to calculate the factorial of a number. Def, factorial n. If n0 or n equals 1, return 1. Else, return n factorial number 5, result assault. The factorial of number is result.
So this code is basically doing a calculation.
What kind of calculation?
It's finding the factorial of the number 5.
Okay, and what's a factorial?
A factorial is just the product of all the whole numbers, from 1 up to that number.
So like 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5.
Exactly, which equals 120.
That's a lot of math.
It is.
But you know what strikes me?
What's that?
Is how clear the code is.
Right. It's very readable.
It almost feels like I could figure it out even without knowing much about coding.
That's the beauty of Python. It's designed to be intuitive.
And that structure, defining a function to do a specific task, that's something you'll see in a lot of other languages too.
It's a common concept.
Okay, that was Python in action.
Nice.
Next up, we have JavaScript,
JavaScript.
the language that makes the web interactive.
It really brings websites to life.
So if you've ever thought about building websites,
Yeah,
Algo Academy says JavaScript is a must-know.
definitely.
Think about all those cool things on websites.
Like what?
Animations, interactive maps, drop-down menus, even just a button that changes color when you hover over it.
All that is JavaScript.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is.
And I can see how that immediate visual feedback would be super motivating for a beginner.
Oh yeah, you code something, hit refresh, and bam, you see the changes instantly.
Exactly. It's like instant gratification.
It is.
And here's something I didn't know.
With it.
JavaScript isn't just limited to front-end development.
That's stuff you see on the website.
Right. It's also increasingly used for back-end
The
development.
behind-the-scenes stuff.
Exactly, with a platform called Node.js.
That's right.
But Algo Academy does mention that JavaScript can be a little quirky.
It can have some unexpected behaviors,
Yeah, which can be confusing for beginners.
especially beginners.
Plus, the best practices for writing JavaScript are constantly evolving,
Things change quickly in the world of web development.
so it can be tough to keep up.
It's a challenge.
But hey, that also means there's always something new to learn,
That's true.
which keeps things interesting.
It does.
Okay, let's see how JavaScript handles that same factorial population we did with Python.
I'm curious to see the difference.
All right, here's the JavaScript code. A simple JavaScript program to calculate the factorial of a number. Function factorial n else n factorial n1, const number 5, const result factorial number n, console.log, the factorial of number is a result.
So you can see it's doing the same thing as the Python code,
Yeah,
just with slightly different syntax.
the way it's written,
Exactly.
honestly, looking at these two snippets side by side, yeah, I'm a bit confused.
How so?
Which one feels more intuitive to you?
That's a good question. And why?
It really depends on your personal preference. Some people find Python more readable,
Okay.
while others prefer JavaScript's more concise style.
So it's really a matter of taste.
It is.
It's like trying on different shoes to see which ones fit best.
I like that analogy.
All right, now let's move on to a language that's known for its robustness.
Okay, which one?
And it's super popular for large, complex systems.
I'm intrigued.
Java.
Java, a classic.
It's often used in those big enterprise-level applications.
It's like at big companies or for financial systems.
Exactly. Systems that need to be super reliable and handle a ton of data.
Makes sense.
One of the things that makes Java so popular is its platform independence.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Algo Academy mentions this write once, run anywhere principle.
Catchy.
Basically, it means that Java code can run on pretty much any operating system.
So you don't have to rewrite it for different computers.
Exactly, which is a huge advantage.
It is.
And I've also heard that Java's strong typing helps catch errors early on. That's important for building reliable software.
Can you explain what strong typing means?
Sure, imagine you're building a tower out of blocks.
Okay.
With strong typing, the language is very strict about what kind of blocks you can use in each spot.
Like you can't put a square block where a round one should go.
Exactly. That prevents you from making mistakes that could cause the whole tower to collapse.
So it's like a built-in quality control system for your code.
Precisely.
I like that.
It's a very helpful feature.
But Algo Academy does mention that Java can be a bit more verbose than some other languages.
Meaning what?
It takes more code to achieve the same thing compared to something like Python.
That's true. Java's a bit more formal and structured.
It's like wearing a suit to a coding party.
I like that.
But that structure can also be beneficial,
Especially for those big, complex projects.
where everything needs to be organized and easy to understand.
Definitely.
So Java is like that reliable, hard-working friend you can always count on.
It might not be the flashiest
But it gets the job done right.
every time.
Okay, let's see how Java handles that factorial calculation.
Okay.
Here's the code. A simple Java program to calculate the factorial of a number. Public class, factorial, public static in factorial n, recur 1, and factorial 1, return 1, public static void, main string args, int number 5, int result, int triable, factorial number. System.out.println, the factorial of the app plus number plus that is a high plus result.
Oh, so you can see it definitely requires more setup than Python or JavaScript.
It's a bit more involved.
But once it's up and running, it's a powerhouse.
So we've covered Python, JavaScript, and Java.
The 3 very popular choices.
That's a good start.
It is, but we've got more to explore.
I'm ready. Bring on the next language.
Okay, but first I wanted to point out something really cool about this Algocademy article.
What's that?
They actually put together this comparison table that rates the beginner-friendly languages.
Tell me more.
They rate them on stuff like ease of learning, versatility, job market demand, and even community support.
That's super helpful. It's like a cheat sheet.
Right. So Python consistently scores high across the board.
Makes sense. Python's got a great reputation as a beginner language.
Yeah, it's readable, versatile, in demand, has a huge community.
Sounds like Python's the valedictorian of the coding world.
You could say that, and, JavaScript isn't far behind.
Oh yeah, JavaScript is the king of web development.
Right, and it's being used for more and more things these days.
So it makes sense that it's rated highly too.
Definitely.
And Java's holding its own as well.
Java's a solid choice, especially when you consider the job market and community support.
It's cool to see how each language has its own strengths.
It's like they each have their own superpowers.
I like that.
Now, you might notice that C# has a good rating for community support.
Not excellent, like some of the others.
Right, so does that mean it's a bad choice for beginners?
Good question. What do you think?
Well, it might mean that the C# community, while it is active and passionate,
Yeah.
it might not be as large or as beginner-focused as some of the others like Python or JavaScript.
Okay, so it's still a good choice, just maybe not as much support for newbies.
Right, but good is still a positive rating, and there are definitely resources out there for C# learners.
That's reassuring.
And, the C# community is constantly growing.
So it might even bump up to excellent soon.
It's possible.
I think it's easy to get caught up in those ratings.
I know what you mean.
But it's important to remember that even a language with a slightly smaller community can still be a great choice.
Absolutely. Each language has its own unique advantages.
And a dedicated group of developers who love using it.
Exactly.
And speaking of resources, Algocademy highlights all the different types of learning tools out there.
Oh, yeah, there's so many options.
They mention online coding platforms like Codecademy.
Those are great for hands-on learning.
And video courses on platforms like Coursera or Udemy.
I've taken a few of those myself.
Then there are good old-fashioned books.
Never underestimate the power of a good book.
And of course, those amazing online forums where you can connect with other developers.
The community is so helpful.
It's like a buffet of coding knowledge.
I like that.
There's something for everyone, no matter how you like to learn.
Definitely.
I learn best by doing...
Hands-on learner.
So those interactive platforms would probably be my go-to.
That makes sense.
But it's great that there are so many choices.
You can find what works for you.
And the best part is, you can mix and match.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to stick to just one type of resource.
Like you might start with an interactive tutorial on Codecademy to get the basics.
Right.
Then watch some video lectures on Udemy to go deeper into specific topics.
I like that approach.
And then if you need to get into the nitty-gritty details, you can consult the official documentation.
That's a great strategy.
It's like creating your own personalized coding curriculum.
It is.
I think that's a key takeaway from Algocademy.
What's that?
Be proactive, explore those resources, and find what works for you.
I agree. Don't be afraid to experiment.
They also emphasize that learning to code is an ongoing journey.
It's not a one-time thing. You're always learning.
The tech landscape changes so fast.
Yeah, you got to keep up.
It's more about developing those skills and the mindset to learn new things.
And adapt as technology evolves.
Makes sense.
It does.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But how do we actually make this decision?
It still feels a bit daunting, right?
It does. How do we choose which language to start with?
Well, Algocademy gives us some practical tips.
Okay, I'm listening.
First, align your choice with your goals. What are you passionate about?
Makes sense.
Then consider those job prospects.
Is there a particular language that's in demand in my area or my industry?
Right.
Okay.
And start with something beginner-friendly.
Yeah, make it easy on yourself.
Exactly. And don't forget those amazing learning resources we talked about.
All those online platforms, courses, books, communities.
Take advantage of them. There's so much support out there.
Seriously, it's amazing.
It is.
And finally, don't overthink it. Sometimes the best approach is to just pick something and dive in.
I love that. Just go for it.
The real learning happens when you start coding.
When you start experimenting and building projects.
That's when the magic happens.
It is.
It's like anything else in life, the more you engage with it,
Yeah.
the more passionate you become and the more you learn.
Definitely.
And Algo Academy reminds us that even though choosing your first programming language is a big step,
It's an important decision.
it's just the beginning.
There's so much more to explore.
As you go on your coding journey, you'll probably learn multiple languages
That's the fun part.
and discover new passions.
Absolutely.
And you'll find what suits your interests and your career goals best.
Exactly.
So it's not a one-time choice. It's more like opening a door to a whole world of possibilities.
I like that.
So we've talked about the factors to consider, the learning resources, even looked at some code.
We've covered a...
What are some key things you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of languages. Python, JavaScript, Java, C#, Ruby, Swift, Go. They each have their own unique flavor.
They do.
And what I'm really taking away from this is that there's no one best language to learn first.
Right. It really depends on what you want to do with code.
Like you said, it's about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
You wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw.
Makes sense.
So if you're all about building beautiful, interactive websites,
Yeah,
JavaScript might be your go-to.
good choice.
But if you're more into data analysis, finding hidden trends, or maybe even building AI,
AI. That's hot right now.
Python could be the perfect fit.
I agree with that.
It all comes down to what you want to create
That's the key.
and finding the language that helps you bring your vision to life.
I like that, bringing your vision to life.
And one thing you said earlier really stuck with me.
What's that?
That question about the impact you want to make with your code.
Oh, yeah, that's an important one. What problems are you passionate about solving?
Right. What kind of change do you want to see in the world?
That goes beyond just picking a language.
It does.
It's about finding your purpose as a coder.
And remember, this is a constantly evolving field,
New languages pop up all the time.
and the old ones keep changing and adapting.
The possibilities are really endless.
They are.
So stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to experiment.
That's great advice.
I think the most important thing is to start coding and just have fun with it.
Couldn't agree more.
So, to wrap things up,
Yeah,
we've covered a ton of ground today, but Algo Academy's article goes even deeper.
it's definitely worth checking out
So go read the full article, explore those resources.
and find your perfect first language.
You got this! Happy coding, and until next time, keep diving deep.